Hare Krishna, my dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the live studios in the Haven, which is located in Hythe, Kent, southeast England, just a stone's throw from the English Channel. We're here to continue broadcasting the Shabda Brahma of Srila Prabhupada's transcendental literatures, which are meant to re-spiritualize the human society. And as bad as it seems now, this process over time works in a microcosmic way and in a macrocosmic way also. This is pure faith. We welcome you all. We hope you're healthy and safe and as secure and happy as you can be in today's world. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Mahima Stotram by Srila Sanatana Goswami explains what I just said in a very succinct, beautiful way. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Purāṇa Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Prabho Kali Dvandoditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Mad Mahadana Man Nishtadaka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhu tadayin atini chochata kada hanamunchagadachin mam primna ritkanta yukspura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, we've reached the 25th chapter of the 4th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which describes the allegorical story of Purañjana, a conditioned soul. Narada Muni is describing this to King Purāṇa. We're starting with text 56. Being thus entangled in different types of mental concoction and engaged in fruitive activities, King Purañjana came completely under the control of material intelligence and was thus cheated. Indeed, he used to fulfill all the desires of his wife, the queen. Purport. When a living entity is in such bewilderment that he is under the control of his wife or material intelligence, he has to satisfy the intelligence of his so-called wife and act according to her dictates. various shastras advise that for material convenience, one should keep his wife always satisfied by giving her ornaments and by following her instructions. In this way, there will be no trouble in family life. Therefore, for one's own social benefit, one is advised to keep his wife satisfied. In this way, when one becomes the servant of his wife, he must act according to the desires of his wife. Thus one becomes more and more entangled. In Bengal, it is said that if one becomes an obedient servant of his wife, he loses all reputation. However, the difficulty is that unless one becomes a most obedient servant of his wife, family life becomes disturbed. In the Western countries, this disturbance gives rise to the divorce law. And in Eastern countries like India, there is separation. Now, this disturbance is confirmed by the new introduction of the divorce law in India. Within the heart, the mind is acting, thinking, feeling, willing, and falling under the control of one's wife is the same as falling under the control of material intelligence. Thus one begets children by his wife and becomes entangled in so many activities under the control of mental concoctions. Text 57 through 61. When the queen drank liquor, King Purañjana also engaged in drinking. When the queen dined, he used to dine with her. And when she chewed, King Purañjana used to chew along with her. When the queen sang, he also sang. Similarly, when the queen cried, he also cried. And when the queen laughed, he also laughed. When the queen talked loosely, he also talked loosely. And when the queen walked, the king walked behind her. When the queen would stand still, the king would also stand still. And when the queen would lie down in bed, he would also follow and lie down with her. When the queen sat, he would also sit. And when the queen heard something, he would follow her to hear the same thing. When the queen saw something, the king would also look at it. And when the queen smelled something, the king would follow her to smell the same thing. When the queen touched something, the king would also touch it. And when the dear queen was lamenting, the poor king also had to follow her in lamentation. In the same way, when the queen felt enjoyment, he also enjoyed. And when the queen was satisfied, the king also felt satisfied. Purport. The mind is the place where the self is situated, and the mind is conducted by the intelligence. The living entity, situated within the heart, follows the intelligence. The intelligence is herein depicted as the queen, and the soul, under mental control, follows the material intelligence, just as the king follows his wife. The conclusion is that material intelligence is the cause of bondage for the living entity. The point is that one has to take to spiritual intelligence to come out of this entanglement. In the life of Maharaj Ambarish, we find that the great Maharaj first engaged his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. In this way, his intelligence became purified. Is the window open? In the life of Maharaj Ambarish, we find that the great Maharaj first engaged his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. In this way, his intelligence became purified. Maharaj Ambarish also used his other senses in the service of the Lord. He engaged his eyes in seeing the deity in the temple, nicely decorated with flowers. He engaged his sense of smell by smelling the flowers, and he engaged his legs by walking to the temple. His hands were engaged in cleansing the temple, and his ears were engaged in hearing about Krishna. His tongue was engaged in two ways, in speaking about Krishna and in tasting prasad offered to the deity. Materialistic persons who are under the full control of material intelligence cannot perform all these activities. Thus, consciously or unconsciously, they become entangled by the dictations of material intelligence. This fact is summarized in the following verse, text 62. In this way, King Purañjana was captivated by his nice wife and was thus cheated. Indeed, he became cheated in his whole existence in the material world. Even against that poor foolish king's desire, he remained under the control of his wife, just like a pet animal that dances according to the order of its master. Purport. The word vipralabdha is very significant in this verse. Vi means specifically, and pralabdha means obtained. Just to satisfy his desires, the king got the queen, and thus he became cheated by material existence. Although he was not willing to do so, he remained a pet animal under the control of material intelligence. Just as a pet monkey dances according to the desires of its master, the king danced according to the desires of the queen. In Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 5.5.2, it is said, Mahat sevam dvaramahu bimuktehe. If one associates with a saintly person, a devotee, one's path of liberation becomes clear. But if one associates with a woman or with a person who is too much addicted to a woman, his path of bondage becomes completely clear. On the whole, for spiritual advancement, one must give up the company of women. This is what is meant by the order of sannyas, the renounced order. Before taking sannyas, or completely renouncing the material world, one has to practice avoiding illicit sex. Sex life, illicit or illicit, is practically the same, but through illicit sex, one becomes more and more captivated. By regulating one's sex life, there is a chance that one may eventually be able to renounce sex or renounce the association of women. If this can be done, advancement in spiritual life comes very easily. How one becomes captivated in the association of one's dear wife is explained in this chapter by Narada Muni. Attraction for one's wife means attraction for the material qualities. One who is attracted by the material quality of darkness is in the lowest stage of life, whereas one who is attracted by the material quality of goodness is in a better position. Sometimes we see that when a person is on the platform of material goodness, he is attracted more or less by the cultivation of knowledge. This is, of course, a better position, for knowledge gives one the preference to accept devotional service. Unless one comes to the platform of knowledge, the Brahma-bhuta stage, one cannot advance in devotional service. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 18.54, Brahma-bhuta prasanatma nashochati nakankshati samat sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labate param. One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. The platform of knowledge is advantageous because it is a means by which one may come to the stage of devotional service. However, if one takes to devotional service directly, knowledge is revealed without separate endeavor. This is confirmed in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 127. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janaya Yashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yadahaitukam. Devotional service automatically reveals actual knowledge of our material existence. One who is sufficiently intelligent immediately attains the stage of renunciation of so-called society, family, and love, as well as other things. As long as we are attached to society, family, and love of the material world, there is no question of knowledge, nor is there a question of devotional service. By directly taking to devotional service, however, one becomes filled with knowledge and renunciation. In this way, one's life becomes successful. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th Canto, 25th chapter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled The Descriptions of the Characteristics of King Purañjana. All glories to Narada Muni for putting out the truth of the material world in such a wonderful, comprehensive, deep, and enlivening way. Hare Krishna. All right. Moving on to chapter 26. King Purañjana goes to the forest to hunt, and his queen becomes angry. Text 1 to 3. The great sage Narada continued, My dear king, once upon a time, King Purañjana took up his great bow, and equipped with golden armor and a quiver of unlimited arrows, and accompanied by 11 commanders, he sat on his chariot, driven by 5 swift horses, and went to the forest named Panchaprastha. He took with him in that chariot 2 explosive arrows. The chariot itself was situated on 2 wheels and 1 revolving axle. On the chariot there were 3 flags, 1 rein, 1 chariot driver, 1 sitting place, 2 poles to which the harness was fixed, 5 weapons, and 7 coverings. The chariot moved in 5 different styles, and 5 obstacles lay before it. All the decorations of the chariot were made of gold. Purport. These 3 verses explain how the material body of the living entity is under the control of the 3 qualities of external energy. The body itself is the chariot, and the living entity is the owner of the body, as explained in Bhagavad Gita 2.13. Dehino smin yata dehe. The owner of the body is called the Dehi, and he is situated within this body, specifically within the heart. The living entity is driven by 1 chariot driver. The chariot itself is made of 3 gunas, 3 qualities of material nature, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 1861. Yantra Rudani Mayaya. The word yantra means carriage. The body is given by material nature, and the driver of that body is Paramatma, the Supersoul. The living entity is seated within the chariot. This is the actual position. The living entity is always being influenced by the 3 qualities: sattva, goodness; rajas, passion; and tamas, ignorance. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7.13. Tribir gunamayar bhavai. The living entity is bewildered by the 3 qualities of material nature. These 3 qualities are described in this verse as 3 flags. by a flag, one can come to know who is the owner of the chariot is. Similarly, by the influence of the three qualities of material nature, one can easily know the direction in which the chariot is moving. In other words, one who has eyes to see can understand how the body is being driven, influenced by the particular type of quality of material nature. In these three verses, the activity of the living entity is described to prove how the body becomes influenced by the quality of ignorance, even when a person wants to be religious. Narada Muni wanted to prove to King Prachinnabharishat that the king was being influenced by the tamoguna, the quality of ignorance, even though the king was supposed to be very religious. According to the karma khandya, the process of fruitive activities, a person performs various sacrifices directed by the Vedas, and in all those sacrifices, animal killing or experimenting on the life of animals to test the power of Vedic mantras is enjoined. Animal killing is certainly conducted under the influence of the mode of ignorance. Even though one may be religiously inclined, animal sacrifice is recommended in the Shastras, not only in the Vedas, but even in the modern scriptures of other sects. These animal sacrifices are recommended in the name of religion, but actually, animal sacrifice is meant for persons in the mode of ignorance. When such people kill animals, they can at least do so in the name of religion. However, when the religious system is transcendental, like the Vaishnava religion, there is no place for animal sacrifice. Such a transcendental religious system is recommended by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 18:66. Sarvadharman parityaja mamekang sharanam vraja ahang tvang sarvapapebhyo mokshayishami ma shuchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Because King Prachinnabharishat was engaged in performing various sacrifices in which animals were killed, Narada Muni pointed out that such sacrifices are influenced by the mode of ignorance. From the very beginning of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1.1.2, it is said, Projita kaitavo tra. All kinds of religious systems that are involved in cheating are completely kicked out of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. In the Bhagavad Dharma, a religion dealing with one's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, animal sacrifice is not recommended. In the performance of Sankirtan Yajna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, there is no recommendation for animal sacrifices. In these three verses, King Purañjana's going to the forest to kill animals is symbolic of the living entities being driven by the mode of ignorance, and thus engaging in different activities for sense gratification. The material body itself indicates that the living entity is already influenced by the three modes of material nature, and that he is driven to enjoy material resources. When the body is influenced by the mode of ignorance, its infection becomes very acute. When it is influenced by the mode of passion, the infection is at the symptomatic stage. However, when the body is influenced by the mode of goodness, the materialistic infection becomes purified. The ritualistic ceremonies recommended in religious systems are certainly on the platform of goodness, but because this material world, even in the mode of goodness, is sometimes polluted by the other qualities, namely passion and ignorance, a man in goodness is sometimes driven by the influence of ignorance. It is herein described that King Purañjana once went to the forest to kill animals. This means that he, the living entity, came under the influence of the mode of ignorance. The forest in which King Purañjana engaged in hunting was named Pancha Prastha. The word Pancha means 5, and this indicates the objects of the 5 senses. The body has 5 working senses, namely the hands, the legs, the tongue, the rectum, and the genitals. By taking full advantage of these working senses, the body enjoys material life. The chariot is driven by 5 horses, which represent the 5 sense organs, namely the eyes, ears, nose, skin, and tongue. These sense organs are very easily attracted by the sense objects. Consequently, the horses are described as moving swiftly. On the chariot, King Purañjana kept 2 explosive weapons, which may be compared to ahankara, or false ego. This false ego is typified by 2 attitudes. I am this body, ahanta, and everything in my body relationships belongs to me, mamata. The 2 wheels of the chariot may be compared to the 2 moving facilities, namely sinful life and religious life. The chariot is decorated with 3 flags, which represent the 3 modes of material nature. The 5 kinds of obstacles, or uneven roads, represent the 5 kinds of air passing within the body. These are prana, apana, udana, samana, and vyana. The body itself is covered by 7 coverings, namely skin, muscle, fat, blood, marrow, bone, and semen. The living entity is covered by 3 subtle material elements and 5 gross material elements. These are actually obstacles placed before the living entity on the path of liberation from material bondage. The word rashmi, rope, in this verse indicates the mind. The word nidha is also significant, for nidha indicates the nest where a bird takes rest. In this case, nidha is the heart, where the living entity is situated. The living entity sits in one place only. The causes of his bondage are 2, namely lamentation and illusion. In material existence, the living entity simply hankers to get something he can never get. Therefore, he is in illusion. As a result of being in this illusory situation, the living entity is always lamenting. Thus, lamentation and illusion are described herein as dvikubara, the 2 posts of bondage. The living entity carries out various desires through 5 different processes, which indicate the working of the 5 working senses. The golden ornaments and dress indicate that the living entity is influenced by the quality of rajaguna, passion. One who has a good deal of money or riches is especially driven by the mode of passion. Being influenced by the mode of passion, one desires so many things for enjoyment in this material world. The 11 commanders represent the 10 senses and the mind. The mind is always making plans with the 10 commanders to enjoy the material world. The forest named Pancha Prastha, where the king went to hunt, is the forest of the 5 sense objects: form, taste, sound, smell, and touch. Thus, in these 3 verses, Narada Muni describes the position of the material body and the engagement of the living entity within it. Text 4. It was almost impossible for King Purañjana to give up the company of his queen, even for a moment. Nonetheless, on that day, being very much inspired by the desire to hunt, he took up his bow and arrows with great pride and went to the forest, not caring for his wife. Purport. One form of hunting is known as woman hunting. A conditioned soul is never satisfied with one wife. Those whose senses are very much uncontrolled especially try to hunt for many women. King Purañjana's abandoning the company of his religiously married wife is representative of the conditioned soul's attempt to hunt for many women for sense gratification. Wherever a king goes, he is supposed to be accompanied by his queen, but when the king, or conditioned soul, becomes greatly overpowered by the desire for sense gratification, he does not care for religious principles. Instead, with great pride, he accepts the bow and arrow of attachment and hatred. Our consciousness is always working in two ways, the right way and the wrong way. When one becomes too proud of his position, influenced by the motive passion, he gives up the right path and accepts the wrong one. Kshatriya kings are sometimes advised to go to the forest to hunt ferocious animals, just to learn how to kill. But such forays are never meant for sense gratification. Killing animals to eat their flesh is forbidden for human beings. Text 5. At that time, King Purañjana was very much influenced by demoniac propensities. Because of this, his heart became very hard. Because of this, his heart became very hard and merciless, and with sharp arrows he killed many innocent animals in the forest, taking no consideration. Purport. When a man becomes too proud of his material position, he tries to enjoy his senses in an unrestricted way, being influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance. He is thus described as asuric, or demoniac. When people are demoniac in spirit, they are not merciful toward the poor animals. Consequently, they maintain various animal slaughterhouses. This is technically called suna, or hingsa, which means the killing of living beings. In Kali Yuga, due to the increase of the modes of passion and ignorance, almost all men are asuric, or demoniac. Therefore they are very much fond of eating flesh, and for this end they maintain various kinds of animal slaughterhouses. In this age of Kali, the propensity for mercy is almost nil. Consequently, there is always fighting and wars between men and nations. Men do not understand that because they unrestrictedly kill so many animals, they also must be slaughtered like animals in big wars. This is very much evident in the Western countries. In the West, slaughterhouses are maintained without restriction, and therefore every 5th or 10th year there's a big war in which countless people are slaughtered, even more cruelly than the animals. Sometimes during war, soldiers keep their enemies in concentration camps and kill them in very cruel ways. These are reactions brought about by unrestricted animal killing in the slaughterhouse and by hunters in the forest. Proud, demoniac persons do not know the laws of nature or the laws of God. Consequently, they unrestrictedly kill poor animals, not caring for them at all. In the Krishna consciousness movement, animal killing is completely prohibited. One is not accepted as a bona fide student in this movement unless he promises to follow the four regulated principles: no animal killing, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. This Krishna consciousness movement is the only means by which the sinful activities of men in this Kali Yuga can be counteracted. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. And we'll stop our reading tonight. It's almost 7:45. And we'll start tomorrow at text 6. In the meantime, we'll wait for the reflections of the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
This is from Gopakanya Devi Dasi.
Gopakanya Devi Dasi, the steadiest hearer on the block.
Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, and all the assembled sages. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Jai Ho, Maharaj, for your daily reading service.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much.
And from Rati Manjari.
Yes, Rati.
Jai Guru Maharaj. Happy to see you again.
Happy to hear you. Hare Krishna. Does that mean you're back from India? Must be.
From Bhakta Rupa.
Yes, Bhakta Rupa.
He says, thank you, Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada makes everything very clear.
Extremely clear. So clear you can't make a mistake if you accept it fully.
Rati Manjari says yes.
Oh, welcome home. Hare Krishna. We hope you had a wonderful pilgrimage. I think they're sensitive. They're very sensitive, these sages. I had a retreat with devotees from London here today, and sat in a chair for a few hours, and it was very, very nice. It was wonderful, but I'm coming to the end of my capacity to sit, and so I'm going to stop early tonight. Please forgive me, and thank you again and again from the core of my heart for attending these reading sessions, and more and more devotees are sending their reactions, and I'm seeing that more and more devotees are actually getting a taste for hearing Srila Prabhupada's books out loud, which is giving me tremendous fulfillment, satisfaction. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktabinda ki jai. Or Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night. Same time, same place, same topic. As the process of material entanglement is further elaborated upon by Narada Muni, the greatest of all spiritual masters. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow.